All right, when it comes to parenting, Nicholine Peck is a worldwide phenomenon and a leader in this field. Her proven system, based on 4 simple skills, transforms even the most out-of-control teenagers and homes from chaos to calm within days. She's an international speaker, author, mentor, former foster parent, and she is president of the Worldwide Organization for Women. Nicholine spends most of her time at home with her husband and 4 children. Ladies and gentlemen, Nicholine Peck.
So I have to warn you, I'm going to tell you a story that is definitely the most embarrassing moment of my life, to tell in front of an audience anyway. So when I was 14 years old, I had a fight with my mom, and it was a really bad fight. In fact, it was one of those that probably had too much drama in it. It could have been on the TV, I would bet. Anyway, I asked my mom if I could go somewhere. And my mom told me no. We were standing on the steps in the front of our home. She was a little bit above me, and I was looking up at her, and she said, no, you can't go to this particular thing with your friend. And I said the rudest thing I could possibly think of. And I guess I'll tell you that I know there's a few children in the room, don't ever say anything like this, but I said, what is it, Parent PMS Week? I did not make that up as a super clever, cutting remark. I actually heard that remark from my friend's mother, talking about my mother. And I felt it was valid to say at that time. When I said that, my mother looked at me and she struck me. And she said, don't you ever talk like that to me again. And I looked up at her as defiant as I could. And I struck my mother. And I said, don't you ever hit me again. What a horrible thing. Then that night my dad came home. Let me just say, there was another hit that happened. I don't ever remember my parents hitting, ever. But I was at a point where I'm sure I was giving them all of the gray hairs that they had in their heads. I'm sure they were praying nightly that somehow I would turn out to be okay. I was entitled. At that moment, with that one argument, I felt they didn't understand me. I felt like I had a need to be with my friends. It really felt like a need. That's what an entitlement feels like, is a need. So how did I get this feeling of this need? Did my parents promote my entitlement? My parents believed in raising character children, positive development, that we would be emotionally strong children. We were a good, God-fearing family. How did I turn that way? Well, the one thing that made me turn out that way, as far as I can tell, is something they completely unintentionally did. And that was allowed me to be with my friends all of the time. I was with my friends at school, and then I would come home and I was with my friends more. And then I would call my friends on the phone, and I would stay talking to them until late hours into the night. I was socially groomed to put my parents first. Not my parents, excuse me, my friends first before my family. And what happened was entitlement. So what is entitlement? To be entitled is to be dignified in some way, to get some sort of title. That's what it means. So a king or a queen, a president, a governor, they all have a title, right? There's titles in our community everywhere. In our religions, there's rabbis and priests and pastors and bishops. We have doctors and professors and teachers. We have lots of titles in our community. In our homes, we also have titles. We have mother and father and grandmother and grandfather and aunt and uncle. Those are all titles, and we put those prefixes before their name or call them that title instead of their name. Children do not get title. They never have. You don't say, child porter, come here. We don't say that, Child Jessica, get your shoes. And we don't just say child because, again, they have a name. We just call them the name. That's it. But in our society, children have become entitled. Now, when a person is entitled in our society, whether they're a mother or a father, a pastor or a president, they get certain perks that go along with that title. Our children are being programmed, engineered actually, to think that their life is about perks too. So what does entitlement look like? We have to ask ourselves. A lot of people, when they think of entitlement, they think of stuff. In fact, I bet you if I said, what is the one thing that most youth want nowadays? That in most of your minds, a little square thing that looks kind of like a computer that sticks in your pocket would probably be the first thing that pops into your mind. A cell phone. That's what everybody wants. It's a thing. But entitlement doesn't stop at just things. It's also a type of a mindset nowadays where people feel like they deserve certain treatment and such. It used to be in days gone by when most of us were raised that we earned stuff and we earned respect. And nowadays, people demand stuff and they demand respect. They've turned the American dream on its head. The American dream means that we work and we earn, and we have all of the potential to do so. So what does it look like when a person is entitled? That child might take their phone to bed. That child might have it with them all the time. They might always have little bud things in their ears. They might say, I'm bored all the time. I don't like that. I don't want that. I don't want to wear that. They might bully other people. Bullying is on the rise. I don't know if you've known that. Noticed that. The more we talk about bullying, the more bullying there is. Have you noticed that? I'm not sure it's working, to be quite honest. Sometimes I wonder if people are being bullied not to bully, and that's just sometimes creating more bullying. We actually are having this problem with demanding certain behaviors of certain people, and the only people who have the right to demand or instruct certain behaviors of their children are the parents. Those are the only ones, and sadly, they have entitlement too, and they are not necessarily stepping up to the challenge. Passive parenting, letting them grow out of it, not fixing it, not being deliberate, is entitlement. Being aggressive and cruel and manipulative is also entitlement. There are so many things I could explain that put parents and children both in this entitlement boat, and then we have expectations that draw our relationships into a trap. So, I want to share with you as quickly as possible, and I promise you it's going to be quick, so take notes, 10 keys for raising unentitled children and youth. Number 1, establish proper roles. This is so important. When I wrote my first book, Parenting a House United, years ago, back in 2009, I assumed everyone understood roles. I assumed they understood what a mother was. Not what she did, not who made dinner, but what a mother was, what a father was in the life of that child. And I assumed that people understood to teach their children what it meant to be a 15-year-old son or a 7-year-old daughter. What is the role that they have? But you know what I found after years and years is people don't understand roles anymore. There's a kind of confusion, a loss of identity within our cultures, and it's starting in our families. So number 1 is roles. In fact, I wrote a whole book about it called Roles, so that I could help people understand that. Number 2, deliberately plan your family culture. Decide on purpose. What type of a family are we going to be? How are we going to solve problems? What skills are we going to have and develop? How are we going to think of each other? And where do we see our family going? In 20 years, what will we turn out to be like? In 2009, the BBC asked me to be on a documentary for them. And it became the most watched episode ever on the BBC. A family from Tooele, Utah. Imagine that. And do you know what they saw? They saw a family who was deliberate. A family who was authentically them and hadn't been taken over by pop culture yet. And it amazed the world. You can watch that on teachingselfgovernment.com. If you click the video tab, you can see that program. Number 3, learn self-government. So our whole society was established on self-government. It is a family principle. What it means is that a person is able to understand the cause and effect in any given situation and then possesses a knowledge of their own behaviors so that they can control them, which means they're in a constant state of self-assessment. And how does this happen? The parent has to teach the assessment, which means that the parent deliberately decides, what skills does my child need to have? And how am I going to correct them? What skills do I need to have to correct them when things go wrong? Number 4, skills. The particular skill I would like you to think of is accepting a no answer. So I teach 4 basic skills to parents so they can teach them to their children. Everyone needs to know them. These 4 skills take care of 99% of all behavior problems. They are following instructions, accepting no answers, accepting consequences, and disagreeing appropriately. But accepting no answers is huge. A person will never be able to conquer themselves until they have learned to give themselves a no answer. And the only way they learn to do it is if their parents give them a no answer too. There are 4 steps to accepting a no answer. You look at the person. You keep a calm face, voice, and body. You say okay or ask to disagree appropriately. You do the task immediately, and then you check back. And the other skill that's so vital to not be entitled is disagree appropriately. Because when a person disagrees appropriately, they state that they understand your point of view, and then they share their point of view, and they do it all with calmness and security, and they listen to what you have to say as the parent, and then they drop the subject. Those are skills that people need. I wish I could go into more detail there. Number 5 is stop out of control behaviors. It's absolutely imperative that parents see themselves as the ones who stop out of control behaviors, not the ones who put up with out of control behaviors, okay? We have an epidemic that I've noticed lately. I go places and people have their little children climbing other people's bookshelves, scaling all kinds of things, and creating havoc, quite frankly. And I look at this and I think, when I was a child, that would never have been okay. And it's not because my parents were stuffy. It's because my parents taught me how to be properly social. In our world that is obsessed with the social, literally obsessed with social interaction, I hope we do not forget that the key place to learn social is in our homes. And parents teach it. Don't let them go wild. And when they're really struggling and going completely out of control, get some help. Get some skills that you need so that you don't go out of control too. Number 6, develop a work culture. Samuel Smiles, one of my favorite authors from the 1800s, in his book Character said, "Work is the antidote for a sick character." It is true. We live in a society of ease and luxury. We don't work very much anymore. It's too easy to just go out to eat all the time. By the way, that's sort of an entitled behavior. We need to teach our children to work, which means we have to learn to love work again. If it's always, well, we have to get our rooms clean and then we can go do something good and something fun, then our children will learn to hate work. Work is one of the number 1 things that builds confidence in our children. Number 7, govern digital devices. If you remember nothing else from this presentation, remember this one thing. You're not bad if you tell them they don't get one yet. This thing has the power to control them, to script them, to groom them. Don't let them have it until they already have the power to control them. It will be too soon. I see it time and time again. Those little things that are so cool are the demise of the family relationships. We have never raised children ever in the history of the world on a steady diet of digital stimulation. It is a social experiment. We don't even know where it's going. Be so careful. My children don't get iPhones until they're 18 years old. And they've been self-governing since they were babies, or working on it at least. We have a kid phone that they use if they have to go babysitting or if they're going to drive somewhere. And it's a dumb phone. It flips and it can't do any tricks and not even pictures. And that's what they get. Number 8, less friend time. This is huge. Did you know 10 years ago the worry was have your kids see their friends less? Less friend time, less friend time. Now everybody says less screens, less screens. Have them play with their friends so they don't do screens. Do you see how the bar has dropped? All of the friends are happening on the screens now. Less friend time, less friend time. Be careful about that. Number 9, meet as a family often. Discuss openly as a family group. Have good, productive family meetings and activities to strengthen your relationships. Without a good relationship, they will always see everything you teach them as a manipulation, as a power struggle, instead of as your role to teach them and to nurture them. And finally, number 10 is have a tone of calmness. I could go into that for an hour. To be calm, you must have self-government over yourself. There's skills you have to learn. How to be calm when somebody else isn't. How to help them get calm without losing your calmness at the same time. When you are calm in your parenting and in your talking to them, it creates an environment of safety. And with safety comes service and gratitude. If your family is serving and continually grateful to each other, then you know you're doing pretty good, and you're probably not as entitled as the next people down the street. We must stop ourselves from being entitled first, entitled to yell at them, entitled to stress out, entitled to everything else, and then we can change their hearts. Learning self-government is all about having a change of heart, about wanting to be a different person in the world and for our families. And when we conquer ourselves, we will give them the strength to conquer all that is being thrown at them in these days. God bless.